Hello, everyone. I'm Mystery.
And I am Dalton Mortimer, the Authenticator, and we are the Duality of Man.
I don't have a video for us to react to today because really there's been so much going on in the past couple of weeks that there is really no one video that can encapsulate all of it.
It's a very quick moving zeitgeist, folks.
Yeah, and obviously Charlie Kirk was shot. We did a video reacting to that on the day that it happened, and now it's been 2 weeks later, and the tone of politics in America really has shifted. This has had a very profound effect on obviously a lot of people on the right who knew Charlie Kirk, and even those who didn't know him, he was very well respected by lots of people. But also, I think just people viewing the reaction from the left to this man being assassinated. Not everybody on the left, obviously, had such uh, extreme reactions, but there were just hundreds, if not thousands, of videos of people actively celebrating a man being murdered. And this shocked a lot of just people who honestly were not plugged in. This doesn't really surprise you and me, but the people who weren't as aware to actually see this all across social media, this shocked them. And I think a lot of them
And
are not going to want to be affiliated with these people.
and like I was saying before we went live, I think personally for me the interesting thing here is not that the reactions to Charlie Kirk's assassination were any more flippant or any more dismissive or any more snide or any more quasi pseudo ironic and meta than any of the other times stuff like this has happened. Um, the difference, insofar as there is a difference, is every other time this has happened, be it the Trump assassination, be it the vilification of people like Jordan Peterson, be it all of the evil characters for the last decade of fictional media being a Trump allegory because reasons. All the other times this has happened, all the other times uh, people in Hollywood or people in the creative industry have told their audiences to repeatedly and fervently go fuck themselves. Every other time something like this has happened, they unironically have gotten away with it. And I think that's part of the reason why the left is so surprised. Because to them, this was just another normal reaction on another normal day. Someone we don't like is dead and he deserved it, don't you know? Therefore, we should be like people people literally were dubbing over their reactions with "No one mourns the wicked" from Wicked or "Ding Dong, the witch is dead" from Wizard of Oz. Which, by the way, that to me that's ironic because 9 times out of 10 it's always the pseudo intellectual hipstery left types that try to use witchcraft as a political tool. But never mind. Um, but also like the good vibrations music, like just the giddy glee of a person we found to be demonically evil is dead and we're dancing literally upon his grave. That kind of attitude has been standard practice in every major institution and every major industry pretty much since 2013, if not slightly before that.
Yeah, I mean, you talked about the comic book industry, how they routinely portrayed their political opposition as actual villains, some of the worst in the world. Like,
Trump is
I think
Nazi Captain America. Jordan Peterson is Red Skull. Um, Max Bemis tells people that they're lucky he's not strapped because et cetera, ad nauseum. Which, to be fair, being insane works as a guy or for a guy who's supposed to be writing Moon Knight. So at least, at least his insanity was a complimentary insanity. But yeah, people
wasn't
like
there one who threatened to fight people at a con? I forget who.
um, I want to say
I think
that
it was
was Mark Wade,
Aubrey. I think it was Aubrey something.
Aubrey Citizen.
Yeah, I believe it was him.
I remember Mark Wade saying that if anyone saw who used to be referred to as Diversity in Comics, um, if they saw Diversity in Comics or your boy Zach now at a con, they were supposed to bring him to Mark Wade so Mark Wade could lay the smackdown on him or whatever the fuck.
He was ex-military. Can Wade even throw a punch?
I would hazard a guess no, because he looks exactly like the hipster bug man that he kind of is. Um, at least if Dan Slott did it, he would at least be able to put a little bit of weight behind it by virtue of Slott being a land whale. But that's neither here nor there. But yeah, this kind of like severely vindictive, post-ironic meta snark attitude of everything and like morally grandstanding over everyone we don't like. It's been a consistent attitude, and I think that's why the left got so blindsided by the reaction to Charlie Kirk, because they were like, wait, we were literally just saying what we've always said about every person we don't like, and saying it with exactly the same amount of flippancy and irony as we always do. How is this any different? And I guess the main difference is it was finally the 1,000th paper cut, or the straw that finally broke the camel's back. I'm kind of surprised they got away with it more when Trump was almost assassinated than they did than they did here, because while Charlie
Well,
Kirk is a far more centrist figure, you would think that the reaction to Trump almost being assassinated would have been larger than it was, I guess.
I think it's because one, Trump survived. I think it's because two, their insane hatred for Donald Trump is well known. Like I think everybody had long
So
suspected that
being
somebody
vindictive
might.
about him is like, well, of course they're going to be vindictive about him. They literally think he's a fascist.
Yeah, but Charlie Kirk was literally just he wasn't in political office. He didn't have any political power. He
He
knew
was an
people
independent
and he
journalist,
talked to
basically.
people. Yeah, and it's just a guy who talked to people and they're celebrating his like murder, and that's just insane.
I
And I think
guess.
it's
I
I don't know. I
guess.
just think it's just real quick, but I think it's cemented in a lot of people's minds that it's not a matter of they don't like you or they disagree with you. They, from the pit of their beings, vehemently hate you.
They think you are evil incarnate and that they are the virtuous rebels punching up against you with as many bullets and other lethal weapons as is necessary. I guess because, like, before, there was always this level of abstraction to their dancing on the metaphorical grave. Like when someone got deplatformed, like Alex Jones or Kanye, or someone got their YouTube account nuked, like Sargon or Academic Agent, or people like that, or any of those. I guess there might have been this level of abstraction that prevented people from clicking to, oh wait, no shit, they literally will not be satisfied until their enemy is quite literally vanquished. But even then, like, there used to be the phenomena of the concrete milkshake throwing phenomena, or the Antifa mob swarming people and beating them over the head with bike locks. Like Andy knows repeated ICU hospitalizations from Antifa are at least as graphic as what happened to Charlie Kirk.
I agree, and but I think the difference is that I think people on the right viewed Antifa as the most extreme aspect of the left, whereas the people celebrating Charlie's death now is literally just everyday people that you could be walking past.
Yeah, the average person who enjoys bread too.
Yeah, and so it's just like you don't know if the person you're standing in line with, somebody's going to dance on your grave if a radical leftist shot you in the head.
Yeah, and let's not forget that for that particular portion of the left, which is probably about half of the left, and I'm trying to be as conservative as possible because someday people like me, Shoe on Head, and the Prim Reaper are going to have to rebuild the left from the ground up into something that's
Did,
not
did you
evil. But
did you see Shu's video?
yes, I did, and I also saw what she posted on Twitter about it, and like I don't want to be mean because Shu is genuinely one of the few remaining good people on the left, um, which I also count myself as. But as similar as you and I may be, Shu, I saw this coming a decade ago, and everyone and their dog told you that this is precisely what would happen if you hung out with people like Vosh and Destiny and Hassan. And I don't support Sargon going full tradcon by way of dadism and that shit, but there is a reason why people like Sargon and Academic Agent and V and Dr. Rand McCam and all the rest of the people you used to power around with back in the good old, 2013 to 2017 anti-SJW days. There's a reason we told you you are going to regret choosing Vosh over Sargon. You are going to regret choosing Hassan over trying to think of people she's beefed with on ostensibly our side. Um, you're gonna regret choosing Vosh over Tim Pool,
Has she beat?
and here we are.
I still have some of those like 2015 Gamergate streams on my phone.
Oh, the good old days.
Yeah, shit was so much simpler back then. And God, if we knew how worse things would get, we'd probably buy a bunker.
I I I still want to know what things look like in the alternative universe where people actually sided with Gamergate rather than against it. If they even went half as hard against Anita Sarkeesian as they did with the people who had issues with her, or they went as far in favor of people like DNC and Anglantine and Captain Cummings as they did with Heather Antos and Zoe Quinn and all the rest of them, what would that world even look like? I I truly believe it would be a better world had people been on the side of Gamergate rather than against it.
Yeah, I sometimes imagine that too, but unfortunately, we have to deal with the world we're in, and the world we're in is quickly turning into a pile of shit.
Yes, we.
Speaking
But
of piles of shit, you want to talk about Destiny losing his fucking mind?
oh, Destiny, there was a time when you were one of the reasonable ones. That time is long dead. But there was a
I don't
time when
know.
you were one of the reasonable ones. Like I,
Yeah,
I
I don't know
remember, I,
what
I
the hell
remember
happened to
Vosh
him.
and Destiny coming to blows over Destiny being sensible and pointing out the Kyle Rittenhouse case was one of the most clear cut cases of self defense ever. There was a time when you were one of the reasonable ones, Destiny, but you lived long enough to see yourself become the villain, and unfortunately, you don't even realize it, which honestly
Yeah,
is sadder. the The fact that these people can gleefully and vindictively like cheer and dance at Charlie Kirk's death because they think he's evil and they think they're the good ones. They think by killing Charlie Kirk they've thrown Emperor Palpatine down the shaft of the Death Star, etc.
I've genuinely developed the theory that their sense of morality is only based around punishment, and so much that if they are not punished for something, they believe it's morally good. And so they got away with so much egregious shit and never got punished from it, though they just kept getting worse and worse and still didn't get punished, so they view that as good. And then when their opponents kept getting punished from them, they say, well, see they're getting punished. Clearly, they are the bad ones.
I think I think at least some of this is once again academia's fault. The the aforementioned, and I've mentioned this more times than I care to count, but the ideological bastard children of Jean-Jacques Rousseau and Hegel are to blame for this, because the Hegelian dialectical view of history is all about thesis and antithesis, about conflicting sides and conflicting modes of thought and conflicting armies. They no wonder they literally can't see beyond all the false dichotomies they keep making. That's what Hegelian dialectics do and have always done. And yet they are treated in like academia and Hollywood and the media as completely intellectual and sacrosanct, while everyone going, wait, that's literally just a pseudo intellectual way of validating false dichotomies that you're supposed to get rid of. Everyone saying that either is too autistic to be charismatic enough to make that a popular talking point, or people just don't know about Hegel in the first place, because the only people who know about Hegel are the people being indoctrinated into the idea that everything that Rousseau and Hegel ever came up with was sacrosanct.
It's just you have these people, and it's like they view that literally everything must be within inside the lines of law, except for the things that they want. In order to get the things that they want, it's perfectly fine to break whatever law they deem necessary in order to get that. But literally everything else has to be done explicitly by the rules, no matter how bad the problem gets, and even if the rules are no longer sufficient to solve the problem, everything still must be within the confines of the rules. And it's just
Because in their head, they're the virtuous put upon rebels, so them being outside the system makes them morally correct. But everyone else using power or using influence against the rules is the first step toward tyranny. They have defined themselves as the noble, virtuous, put upon, victimized rebels in all circumstances, and everything they oppose as the tyrant in waiting in all circumstances. And that's again, it's this Hegelian thesis antithesis dichotomy. When you think of the world in terms of thesis and antithesis and nothing the fuck else, you will ultimately turn every system into this black and white good versus evil crap. And that kind of moralistic authoritarianism is what leads people to think political violence is good, because if you actually genuinely believe, if you have convinced yourself to believe that your enemy is a fascist tyrant in waiting, well, we've all sat in a philosophy 101 course and had the discussion of, if you had a time machine and you could go back to kill baby Hitler, wouldn't you do it? And that makes this logic, this idea of speech is violence, ideas are violence, therefore in order to prevent the ideas that we don't like from actualizing, we must uh, engage in preventative violence before the tyrant can rise up, so that the tyrant doesn't rise up. We can be the enlightened ones who kill baby Hitler before he becomes Hitler and thus save the world from World War II. That's the way
honestly,
these people think.
if I was given a time machine, I'd go back and tell them to renegotiate the Treaty of Versailles so that it doesn't absolutely screw over Germany, leading to the poor conditions that would inevitably give rise to Hitler in the first place.
Well, there's that, and then there's also the other idea of a lot of the tyrants throughout history are people who exhibited cluster B personality disorders, which are frequently the result of early childhood trauma. So maybe instead of killing baby Hitler to prevent World War II, you should go back and raise baby Hitler so that he doesn't become abused and therefore won't become a remorseless sociopath and won't therefore be the one that begets World War II. Although, to be fair, and this is the other problem, because of the aforesaid Treaty of Versailles issue, someone was going to be the equivalent of a Hitler, regardless, and that's perfectly demonstrable by the fact that Stalin, Mao, Mussolini, and Franco all arose at pretty much the exact same time in neighboring countries. Like once one tyrant in waiting is a coincidence, but 4 or 5 of them all at the same time and in the same circumstances, yeah, no, I'm thinking there might be a causative variable there. Just saying.
The fallout of World War One really did cause a lot of this.
And even World War One probably could realistically have been forestalled if someone had just gone back and saved Archduke Ferdinand.
Yeah, but to get back on topic and to veer back to Destiny a bit, I've heard multiple theories that his recent crash out's basically just been him trying to speed run his own destruction, and that he hates his life so much that he's just going to become the most horrible, hate-filled homunculus you can imagine, and until eventually just crashes into someone that eventually just ends it. I've heard this because they said that well, his wife left him, which everybody could have warned. Everybody did warn him about being in a
Yeah,
open relationship.
the whole open relationship where he's the cuckold and therefore his wife necessarily doesn't and shouldn't respect him thing. Like, was there a single person who saw that and didn't go, I mean, you do you, bro, but I don't see this going well for you?
Yeah, and then also his son apparently hates him. I believe his son is actually a fan of Nick Fuentes. So yeah, he absolutely hates his father.
Yeah, I guess some of that does explain the speed and severity of the crash out, but on some level I think this was inevitable because I think it's just the aforementioned thing of when everyone and their dog in the media and in fiction tell you fascism is on the rise, we are the only good ones, nothing the other side has ever done has ever been good. Like when that is the
I mean,
drumbeat for a decade and some change, if you happen to be the sort of person who can convince themselves to genuinely believe that, of course you're going to spiral downward as you see what you think is fascism become more and more and more ascendant. Granted, this could be resolved by someone calmly and amicably explaining to him that his definition of fascism is wrong and inadequate and does not apply to the things he's applying it to. But no one wanted to have that discussion because I'm autistic for wanting to have that discussion and be that pedantic. But there is a reason why I was so hard-line on this issue. You need to know the definitions of things before you can use the term for said things, lest we wind up in this situation where people are convinced that they are in a freaking Orwell novel, when in actuality, all they're seeing is libertarian populism for the most part.
yeah, I had honestly assumed that Destiny was smart enough to see through all the rhetoric, around this political opposition and see that it was all just a ploy in order to, enliven the base and make sure that they don't consider voting for the opposite side. But apparently, I overestimated his mental capabilities.
Well,
But
actually,
Hassan, how
well,
you go?
before we move to Hassan, the interesting thing is they've done research into cults, and I think it's fair to say that what we used to call social justice, when we now call wokeness, is effectively a cult. Um,
Yeah,
One of the interesting things they found was it wasn't idiots that wind up falling for cults, because intelligent people are intelligent enough to do mental gymnastics and convince themselves of seemingly spurious shit. So, in some ways, I think his intelligence may have been a vulnerability. And And that's another insidious thing about the way they run academia now. Because you take these very intelligent or higher than average intelligence people and you run them through the long march of the institutions, and then you get them to use their own minds to convince themselves that what you're telling them is true and valid and intellectual and moral and valid, and then boom, you have a brainwashed fuck for life because you've taught them how to use their own mind against itself.
Entirely possible. But moving on to Hassan, like Hassan's always basically been evil. Like this is nothing new for Hassan at all.
Yeah,
And
the only
he's
question is he more lame than evil or is he more evil than lame? That is the question.
personally at this point I genuinely believe he's more evil than lame. Although I think it's about 70-30 evil lame.
I'd go about 60-40, but I think I'd go 60-40 in the other direction because his lameness does make him slightly less threatening. So yeah, I'd go 60% lame to 40% evil.
To be fair, he he's never the type to actually go out and do anything himself. But then again, the mustachioed Austrian never got to get his own hands dirty either.
This is true, but I think Hitler was slightly more self-aware than his son. I don't
I
think
think
his
he's
son
fully
even
aware of.
I don't think Hassan is even fully aware of what it does or what his own ideas and rhetoric lead to. I think he genuinely is just trapped in that cycle of left wing bred to political brain rot to such a degree that he can no longer tell the difference between Twitter and real life anymore. Or, I guess, in this case, blue sky and real life anymore.
I mean, the man supports literally. I mean, I guess not literally, but damn near every terrorist organization under the sun. I mean, I believe he's had actual terrorists on his stream,
Yeah,
and he calls for violence all the time. Like there's a compilation out there of him calling for the death of politicians, calling for them to calling for his followers to basically gut people in the streets. So
yep.
I, I don't believe that he doesn't know what he's doing is horrible. I just think he doesn't care because I think he views his targets as valid targets.
Well, yeah, I guess there is that. I go back and forth as to whether he knows it or not because, like, on the one hand, yes, you're right. He probably just thinks they deserve it, so whatever. But on the other hand, I think there might be still a part of him that thinks that anything done on streaming or on YouTube doesn't map onto reality or can't possibly have real world consequences.
I mean, you say that, but after everything that's happened, anybody that's actually paying attention, Hassan is someone who pays attention, even if he's a fucking moron. Um, they have to see that like that is the case. That words online can push people into believing things, and that can lead them to action.
I I don't know because he does believe that whenever any right winger does anything, but I think it's another one of those cases of our opposition are the establishment or are the adults in the room, and therefore they're held to a higher standard than we are because we're the poor, virtuous, victimized, put upon rebels, and therefore it's good for us to be as anti order, as anti institution, and anti just civilization as possible because we're the good guys, don't you know?
Yeah, I mean, it's entirely possible, but I think I think once you get to the point of endorsing terrorist organizations that are the stated enemies of the nation that you are living in and are a citizen of, like at a certain point, you just have to have personal responsibility about the things you're saying and doing.
Yeah, but unfortunately, he's one of those people on the left that doesn't believe in personal responsibility for the people he does like, infinite personal responsibility for the people he doesn't like, and that's why he demonizes them. But people he does like, well, personal responsibility is just a Western patriarchal capitalist construct, don't you know, that we have to deprogram people out of. Who ever
Yeah,
heard of people taking individual responsibility for things, except for things I define as evil because reasons?
and I gotta say, did you see any of the memorial for Charlie Kirk that was streamed online and I think it was televised as well?
I heard somebody tried bringing a gun to it. I think like two or three people did actually.
I didn't hear about that, but it was stupid because the vice president and the president were there, so obviously the shit's going to be locked down incredibly tight. Also, Charlie Kirk's family is obviously going to be there, and considering what happened to the man himself, they're going to have obviously tight security. So, how stupid do you have to be?
Well, and on the basis of them being stupid, if I were so evil as to want all of the aforementioned people done and dusted, I would have gone full Unabomber and tried a bomb, and that way you could have hit as many birds with one stone as possible. God, I love that our enemies are so incompetent they can't even be evil correctly.
Yeah, but speaking of incompetence, there's a story that I want to touch on later that specifically points to that. But getting back to the memorial, his wife, Erica Kirk, her speech was very powerful, very haunting, and she showed immense courage and grace um, when she had
Forgave
within her
the
truth.
shooter, yes.
Yeah, that was incredible. I'll be honest with you, I don't know if I would have had the strength to do that. I just
Yeah, I don't think I'd have the stones for doing that. If someone killed my significant other, I think I would be almost going full Dracula from Castlevania on their ass. But
yeah,
I,
I'd be
I am
going.
I am happy for her that she was able to stand by her principles. I am
Yeah,
unhappy that the person she forgave probably was unworthy of that forgiveness, and thus her goodness fell on deaf ears and blind eyes.
soon enough it'll fall on dead ears. But
Yeah, this one survived. At least that means we'll get to know why they did it in more strident detail. Not that we need it, considering that all of the evidence is currently conclusive that they were the very model of a modern Antifa thug. Um, I mean, he literally put "Hey fascist, catch" on one of the bullets. What 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 more evidence do we need?
yeah, I mean, it's literally right there in black and white. I mean, you even have his Discord messages, and I think he had people in his friends. I think he had friends who were non-radicals who just said, yeah, this guy was very much a lefty in opposition to his family. And then you had also his transgender furry. I don't know if it's boyfriend or girlfriend, whatever. I don't give a fuck. But obviously, this guy was not a MAGA Trump supporter, despite what that walking, talking anus Jimmy Kimmel might try to say.
Yeah, no, like that. What frustrates me so much about that whole rigmarole is they try to make the argument that because his family was hyper traditionalist, hyper Christians, that meant that he is, even though literally every like online lefty has a "I grew up in a fundamentalist household and was able to separate myself from it" story. Like Aquila, obviously, Destiny, I think, um,
Yeah, Destiny himself mentioned.
Vosh.
In fact, hold on, in an argument with, I forget who it was with, but it was some conservative. Uh, I think it was actually Andrew Wilson, but yeah, when Destiny tries to argue that the guy was a right winger because he grew up in a right wing household, like he points out that he himself grew up in a right wing household and is now a extremely radical, insane leftist, and then it's like you just disproved your own argument, you fucking moron.
Well, yeah, and the interesting thing there is it's never just generic Christianity that these absurd leftists come out of. It's always the most radical, fundamentalist, Bible thumping kind. So there's probably something to be said about raising children in extreme environments frequently means that they will swing all the way to the other side of the spectrum when they have the freedom to do so. Because
Well,
I
here's the thing. It's not. It's I do see where that is a possibility. Yes, but even with like a lot of these people who were who were dancing on Charlie Kirk's grave, like a lot of them were just like regular people who were from like regular families. So while the extreme pressure of such an environment could definitely be a factor, I don't think it's like the. It's definitely not
yeah,
the sole
it's not
factor.
the factor. I was just remarking upon the fact that it's an interesting paradigm that frequently repeats itself. Then again, I also just went into a long ass diatribe about how fucked academia is by taking people in their early 20s or late teens looking for an identity and funneling all that curiosity, all that intellectualism, all that desire to learn new things or become a better person and twisting it into dyed in the wool cult believing ideologue.
Yeah, and to, and these people like it's stunning how they think just because your family thinks something that automatically this is also this other person's political views. Like rebelling against the family, like even, not even just Christian, but like basically any type of family, is a trope for a freaking reason.
Well,
Like it's
yes, not to mention that they themselves are examples of it. Again, like we know for a fact this happened to Vosh. We know for a fact this happened to Destiny. I don't know if it happened to Hassan because it seems like he and his father mostly agree on stuff. But uh, at least as regards supporting terrorist groups, although they have different reasons for supporting them, and so on. But like you know this trope of kid from a small town rural environment that comes from right leaning roots goes to college and becomes a leftist is a trope that like even to some degree it happened to me because before college I used to be a like Randian objectivist type of libertarian, and then after a couple years of college I was a Bernie bro. So thankfully I avoided both radicalist death spirals, but I did move quite significantly from a fairly severely right position to a moderately severe left position. And again, I am so grateful that I avoided the fucking whirlpool of anarchistic radicalization because fuck all that noise entirely. But even I guess, am somewhat of an example of it because I moved from like Ayn Rand to Bernie Sanders 2016. So
yeah. For me, it was I was in college in 2014, and I could definitely and looking back, I could definitely see hints of it. But it didn't really manage to suck me in. I mean, I hung out with some people who kind of thought like that, but it wasn't as deep and obvious and insane as it was now. It was back in
mm.
its more like underlying insidious phase, and so I ended up not doing very well and ended up plugging
Did
out.
they make you do
And
the
so,
tunnel of oppression thing?
huh?
In my college, there was this mandatory thing called the tunnel of oppression that all students had to go through. That was about like the history of various oppressed groups and shite,
Uh,
and,
no,
and that was like right around 2013, same time you would have been.
no. that's something, thank God, I had to endure. But yeah, so I had a year in between, colleges, and that's really when I started to notice things.
Hmm.
Basically, I was, trying to figure out my life, and then I like accidentally scrolling on YouTube, bumped into a Sargon video, and so it was like, the hell is this? And then I kept watching and seeing more and more of those type of videos. I'm like, the fuck is wrong with these people? And says, yeah, I want no part of that, and basically just ran in the opposite direction.
For me, it was the Amazing Atheist back when he was in the anti-SJW phase, and then from there to people like Sargon and Dr. Anna McCam and so on. Although I also had the interesting element of, because I was doing a philosophy degree, I actually I actually, as part of my degree, had to read a lot of the like uh, post German, post French neo Hegelian ideology. So I was able to go, okay, hold on, these are the differences between like a John Locke classical liberal and what's now being referred to as progressivism. Which I, even though I did get severely burnt out and kind of flunked out of college, I am grateful that I went in, just so that I'd be able to, just so that I would have the ammo necessary to see this in like intellectual terms and like pick apart the ideological bullshit of this nonsense. Because
Oh,
it's been a very useful skill, being able to look into the eyes of fucking Cthulhu and actually make some kind of sense out of it and have the tools necessary to dissect it is a good thing. I'm glad I went through it, even if it did give me a severe anxiety disorder. Uh,
yeah. But to contrast Erica Kirk's speech, Donald Trump spoke after her, and he said it's like we ourselves that he can't forgive his enemies. Like he's just not going to forgive them for the things that they've done. And people were saying that, oh, like he's the president, he should try and be more unifying. And I'm like, have you not
he
seen the
is
levels of
being
hatred they have for
unified.
this
People
man?
are done with this shit. Like, you guys
Like,
do realize that it's only you who want there to be this both sidesism. And again, I don't support political violence. Political violence is evil and stupid. But if we are looking at the sets here, you will notice that one of these sets is severely disproportional as compared to the other. And I hope, frankly, that that results in the left just calming the fuck down and stopping it with the political violence. But I worry that someday it's going to wind up with both sides actually doing more political violence, and I don't want that to happen. Like, I don't want it to be a case of authoritarian left versus authoritarian right. I want both left and right to be as libertarian as possible without being anarchist, please.
well, the thing is, like, Trump can't unify with these people. It's not like that he wouldn't be interested. It's just that he himself has accepted the fact that there is literally nothing he could ever do or say that would have these people unify with him because they hate him that much. And it's got to the point where he just accepts the fact that no, these people will never accept anything I say. They're literally just now nothing more than my enemies.
And again, like, this standing against this bullshit is unifying. I've been saying since like 2015 that Antifa needed to be designated as a terrorist group, for that is in fact what it is. I've been saying for years that that there really is no like, how do you deprogram someone who has grown up on not only everyone in the news media going Trump is Hitler, Trump is Hitler, Trump is Hitler, but everything in like fictional escapist media as well being like Trump is Hitler, Trump is Hitler, Trump is Hitler. When you grow up with that kind of, and again, I don't like the term stochastic terrorism. I find the term stochastic terrorism to mostly be a disingenuous way of intellectualizing the fallacy of guilt by association. But if it has a definition, then it is stochastic terrorism. And again, I don't like the term stochastic terrorism. I find the term stochastic terrorism to mostly be a disingenuous way of intellectualizing the fallacy of guilt by association. But if it has a definition, if it can be said to be a substantive thing, the case against the mainstream media and the entertainment media doing stochastic terrorism for 13 fucking years against Trump or anyone who has values similar to Trump um, is one of the clearest cases of stochastic terrorism in human history. When are we going to talk about how fucked in the head it is for everything in the news media and everything in the entertainment media going Trump is Hitler, Trump is Hitler, Trump is Hitler for 13 years? When is that going to click in people's heads and go, oh shit, we're the bad guys. We called someone Hitler who has nothing whatsoever in common with Hitler other than populism. And populism is good and based, and that makes us the bad guys. When that happens,
How
I will once again be willing to entertain more people's views on the left. But for now, it's me, it's Sean Head, and it's the Prim Reaper. Like we are the
honestly,
three like remaining leftist personalities, goddammit, that are sane.
how do you convince someone that their entire perception of reality is essentially inverted? I mean, you would have to, I think, go through some serious, like, intense psychological cult deprogramming type of therapy in order to convince people at this point.
And let's be real here. The people conducting said deprogramming are also some of the most dyed in the wall cases of ideologues. Like I mentioned the Prim Reaper just a minute ago. Does anyone remember or did anyone look at the APA guidelines for the psychological treatment of men and boys recently? Because yeah, it's like Anita Sarkeesian style feminism on steroids. And men need to be deprogrammed from their masculinity because that's what makes them toxic and evil, don't you know?
And they question why men avoid therapy.
Yeah. So before we can even go through the process of deprogramming the last dozen years of omnipresent unilateral propaganda, we have to also overhaul academia from the ground up as well, and basically just get rid of everything Hegel or Hegel adjacent ideologies ever touched, and fucking gas the psychological profession and the social sciences, because like that is the heart of the like wasp nest of evil here. We need to overhaul the social sciences and a significant portion also of the hard sciences, because even the hard sciences have been bastardized and warped by um, post structuralism, which is what they call it when postmodernism is applied to the hard sciences. So we need to like our entire intellectual apparatus needs to be purged and sanctified before we can even have the discussion about, okay, so what if we deprogrammed the last dozen years of everyone we don't like is a subhuman monster and also a fascist in waiting? Because no one normal can grow up in that environment and not become fucked in the head. Because if you
Yeah.
genuinely believe that your enemy is one of the worst human beings to ever walk the earth, of course you're going to think to yourself, well, if I'm the only one that can see that this person is pure evil, then I must take this into my own hands, and so I must get a gun. And as the old Antifa slogan says, liberals get the bullet too. And
Yeah, and
considering
no
how
amount of
often people
evidence.
like me and Chew on Head get death threats, yeah, I'm fully aware you weren't joking when you said liberals get the bullet too, and you can go fuck yourselves. Thanks.
Considering that even if you showed them hard evidence that what they believe is wrong, they'll just mental them gymnastics their way into saying that the evidence is wrong.
Yep, they'll just recontextualize it and poison the well. And again, it's this thing I mentioned earlier about how cults are actually very attractive to highly intelligent people, because highly intelligent people have the extra intellectual capacity to convince themselves of things.
But we you mentioned how it was good that they were incompetent because they did not successfully assassinate Donald Trump. Well, I don't know if you've heard this yet, but there was a shooting today in Dallas on an ICE facility.
I I'm not surprised that it happened, but I am like morose about the fact that it happened so quickly after the previous thing that redefined our news cycle indefinitely.
Well, this is an interesting story, so listen to these details that I get for you.
Mm,
So it was in Dallas, and the shooter, I believe, had a rifle, and on the rifle was written anti-ice messaging. So I believe he sought inspiration from the Charlie Kirk shooter because he had also written messages on his bullets.
yeah, I'm pretty sure
Is
that's
that going
gonna
to be a
get
fucking trend
copycatted
now?
to all hell, one way or the other.
But there was a van that was entering the facility, but it wasn't an ICE van. It was a van from another federal agency. But the van was unmarked, so he didn't know that. And so he shot at the van, and I think he killed three people. I think he maybe injured two others. The thing is, the people that he killed weren't federal agents. They were detainees being transported to the facility
So you've literally just shot your own cause in the foot here.
or in the
A-
chest.
Again, I'm grateful that our enemies are so incompetent because if they were more competent, they would actually be scary. But still, god damn it, like, and again, when is the news media and the entertainment media going to bear any of the responsibility for this? When is academia going to bear any of the responsibility for this?
And the thing is, there's already people online on the left, one of the Krasensteins who was trying to spin it and say, "Oh, it's really weird that this person had anti-ice messaging very conveniently on the bullets, ignoring the Charlie Kirk killer also wrote on his bullets, and it says like, oh yeah, it was a shooting at an ice facility, but no federal agents were harmed. That's suspicious. They're like, no, he shot into a van. He didn't know who was in the van.
It's almost like you shouldn't encourage people to thoughtlessly go on anarchistic rampages because everyone who doesn't agree with them is a fascist or something.
Yeah, they're trying to do the usual spin thing, and I'm just so fucking sick of these assholes. Like they will literally do anything in their power to skirt any sense of responsibility, so that so that they can just keep saying the same evil shit over and over again. Well,
And
try to
all
avoid any responsibility they have for leading these people to these actions.
and all this will do if it doesn't change soon is it will do a boy who cried wolf scenario. So when there is eventually a right wing shooter or some other such terroristic fuck, people won't believe them when they say it was a right winger because, well, you lied about the previous 500 examples of left wing violence and didn't call it left wing violence. So who's to say this is right wing violence now? And all that's going to do is make any hypothetical radicalized right winger all the more likely to do that shit again. And then we're living in a world where both sides have their authoritarian crazies cranked up to 11, and the only people who suffer are the people like us in the middle who are going, what in the fuck are you both playing at?
And there was also an article recently from, I believe it was The Atlantic, that touched on the subject of rise of left wing violence. And my only thought was, the fuck have you assholes been for the last decade?
Yeah, like again, we all remember Yvette Falarca and Chanta Driver and other associates of BAM that was founded in 2009 and became like known on the world stage in like 2013 or 2014. We all know about the people who swatted and doxed and sent bomb threats to Gamergate meetups or anti feminist meetups. We all know that people like the Honey Badgers were ejected from a comic book convention because they were anti-feminist and men's rights advocates. Like, this shit has been going on for at least a decade, if not closer to like 12 or 15 years. And y'all are only just now realizing how fucked everything is. And what's more, not only has it taken them a decade and some change to get there, but they're still diagnosing it wrong. It's like that one, the Rewriting Ripley article about how white supremacy took over Star Wars and blah 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 blah. Not only not only did it take him until 2019 to catch up on things that happened in 2013, but he got every single one of them wrong because he intellectually recontextualized it and filtered it through 1,000 fractal layers of framework.
Yeah, and it's also how like they were constantly saying how you know whenever you have these like nerd hobbies, how men hate women in their spaces. Like, no, men love women in those spaces because they get to share their hobby with someone of the opposite sex, which usually doesn't happen a lot. It's just that when they come in and try to change shit,
Yeah, when
that
it's
people don't
not
like.
genuine, when it's not people who are genuinely interested in the subject matter, but instead the feminist cultural occupation troops. And by the way, a lot of actual female geeks and female nerds hate the fucking feminist hipster types that try to overhaul uh, the IPs they like on allegedly their behalf. Like, if you want to know what actual geek girls think about the Anita Sarkeesians of the world, ask Maranya one of these days. Ask Mecha Random 42. Ask ask Allison Tiemann, because like there
Ask you.
were and are geek girls who are genuine geeks, just like everybody else, but they use feminist types use feminism as an ideological wedge to not embrace geekdom, but to turn it into a weapon for their political bullshit. And anyone who does prioritize the actual in universe logic or world building or lore of an IP over politics or philosophy or moral weaponry, well, they're just toxic fans. They're just incels. They're just man babies, don't you know?
So, where do you think things are going to go uh, politically? Do you think? I honestly just looking at the state of things. There's no way around more violence going to happen. Like,
It's
it's terrible, but unfortunately,
yeah, I genuinely can't say where this is going to go because I didn't expect the Charlie Kirk shooting to be as big as it turned out to be, and I don't know what happens now. I hope what happens now is enough pushback against the Hassans, Voshes, and Destinies of the world will hopefully de-radicalize some people on the left, and maybe the media and the entertainment media and academia will take some responsibility for it. That's what I would hope would happen, but I don't see how we do that in today's day and age. I don't see how we I don't see how we go back to the way things were before, and I don't see how we move to a best case scenario from here. I think this is one of those things that's just it's all too murky. It's a little bit like the fog of war. It's the fog of it's the fog of interesting times, I suppose. Because I didn't see any of this coming after the whole Charlie Kirk thing. So I don't know where we go from here. I'm hoping it's we still somehow get to the good ending, but I'm having a hard time seeing how we could get to the good ending from here.
honestly, I don't know if the good ending is even possible at this point. I just think we should. shoot for the least horrible option.
But even then, what's that look like for you anyway? Because like I said, I got nothing. I have no idea what's going to happen next.
For me, the least terrible option would be um, the reestablishment of law and order. People online calling for political violence being either banned or in case of genuine threats, very serious targeted threats, being being arrested. Like, I think honestly, I'm surprised Hassan isn't in jail fucking already.
I yeah, especially with all of the God's work that Nexnor has been doing with
Yeah,
regard to the Hassan issue. I really hope he I really hope that after Hassan is arrested, which I do agree, I think he should be. I think after Hassan is arrested, he should start doing a Vosh is X% fucked video, because to me Vosh is the next runner up as to the worst possible person on the left. Like, you might wind up in a scenario where Destiny is crashing out and speedrunning his downward character arc so quickly that Destiny ends up going first. But I personally think that Vosh is far worse than Destiny, because at least Destiny's insanity is probably due to his like personal circumstances, like you said, with all of the personal shit that's happened in his life. But
and
Vosh
that's
un- unironically defends his evil bullshit as the intellectually correct position. So I'd rather see Vosh first than Destiny.
also even if Destiny's life is falling apart, it's primarily due to his own actions, and even then, it's not right to you know deal with your life going down the toilet by calling for violence against other people. Like, that's just
Becoming a literal lunatic.
yeah.
Like, I've not seen someone who looks as unhinged as Destiny on like TV or movie screen since the fucking
Honestly, no.
Unabomber, and the Unabomber has the excuse of wanting to be like a Henry David Thoreau survivalist type. What the fuck is Destiny's excuse for looking so like disheveled and just physiognomy check impossible? God damn it, right?
Honestly, at this point, the only thing Destiny is missing is a costumed billionaire.
You think Destiny is on his Joker arc?
I mean, I can't see it any other way, and I'd say Elon Musk, but he's too busy building spaceships and such to have to find some other billionaire to fight.
He'd have to become considerably more entertaining, I think, to be the Joker. I think he's more like Calendar Man, probably.
Or Kite Man.
Right?
But yeah,
Or actually, no, the like incelified version of the Riddler from the Matt Reeves Batman movie. That's actually fairly close to Destiny at this point.
I still haven't seen that.
It's a good movie. If you're like me, you'll probably go, "Why in the fuck did they turn the Riddler into an incel?" Other than because of my political commentary points, but even then, I that wasn't such. It wasn't so overbearing that it pulled me out of the story. It just was like, I wish we could have gotten a more accurate version of the Riddler that wasn't being used as a political football.
Hmm. I'll check it out and let you know what I think about it. But I gotta get ready to go. So, do you have any final thoughts about the state of this shit show?
I just hold on tight, gang, because I I'm usually pretty good at knowing like where trends are going, and like I say, I just have nothing this time. It completely blindsided me, and it's probably going to keep blindsiding me for the foreseeable future. We'll see you on the other side. Hopefully, it's before everything falls into an apocalypse.
Yeah. I've been Mystery.
I have been Dalton Mortimer, the Authenticator, and we have been the Duality of Man. Cheers, guys.
Goodbye, everybody.